And are we being recorded? Yes, we are. I see that now. Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Alice. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. You have such a wonderful smile. Um,
Thank you.
so welcome back, everyone. And this is Alexis Haselberger, who is a friend and coach, a new friend and new coach for me, but friend and coach nonetheless. So Alexis is a time management, productivity, and stress reduction coach. She's the founder of Alexis Haselberger Coaching and Consulting Incorporated. She's a time management, productivity, and stress reduction coach who helps people do more and stress less through coaching, workshops, and online courses. Her pragmatic, irreverent approach helps people easily integrate realistic strategies into their lives so that they can do more of what they want and less of what they don't. Alexis has taught over 240,000 people to take control of their time, and her clients include Google, Lyft, Workday, Capital One, Upwork, and more. And today's title is Ruthlessly Realistic, doing your best without destroying yourself. All right. This is interesting. I'm noticing the more interviews I do, the more I want to say, but tell us about yourself first. Okay. And um, hmm, I like these questions, but I'm not sure I'm going to do them in this order.
You can ask me whatever you want, Alice.
I really could, couldn't I?
Yeah, ask me anything.
Um, so a lot of people who are activists or spiritual people or involved in personal growth, so basically almost everybody's here.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of us are bad with time. Why do you think that is?
I mean, me too, right? Like, I mean, now I'm not so bad with time, but like, I have ADHD. I was not great with time, but I think the answer to the question is this. Ambitious people are overly optimistic about time, right? We have so many things we want to do, we think we should do, we want to be able to fit into this life. And it's hard to admit to ourselves that we actually can't do it all. Like that's the hardest thing that anyone I work with, and including myself, I have to learn this lesson every single day of my life. But it is
Mhm.
the hardest thing to admit because like there's so much we want to do.
Yeah, and as activists, if we believed what was realistic, we wouldn't be in this.
No, no, it's like activists and entrepreneurs, same thing, right? It's like there's no we talk about startup founders as, oh, they're delusionally optimistic. Yeah, they have to be. You have to be delusionally optimistic to be an activist, to think that like the scale of change takes so long, right? That you have to be delusionally optimistic
About time.
about the outcome in some
About
ways,
outcome. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And then like I actually think it doesn't serve us to be delusionally optimistic about time. It actually does the opposite because it makes us feel um as though we are not moving as like we're not moving as fast as we should. I hate the word should so
But but
much,
but but
right?
we think should. I keep
Yeah.
looking like I have lipstick in one spot, but it's actually a shadow. And I'm like, did I put lipstick in one spot? Sorry.
You look great. You look great.
And I'm wearing no lipstick apparently. So um sorry. Yeah, actually that reminds me of something I brought up. The first interview of today was with a Palestinian person in Palestine. He's in the
Yeah.
West Bank, and he was talking to a friend in Gaza, and he was saying, I don't know how to offer her hope.
Right.
And I brought up this quote that has a very different application here, where Viktor Frankl said, people who were in the Nazi death camps who had hope with a timetable
Mm.
died.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
people who had no
interesting.
hope also died.
Yeah.
The people who had hope with no timetable were the ones who, if they weren't actually killed, they were the ones who survived this
Yeah.
starvation and deprivation and waiting
Yeah.
because because they were optimistic about the outcome, but not the timeline.
Right, right. And it's interesting, right? Because like, so one, thank you for sharing that because I had never heard that, but now that I think about it, it's both heavy and it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But also, it's like, yeah, the timeline, like, is it really hope if it has the timeline, right? Because like hope is so much more expansive than that. And like, how
Mm,
can we say that, oh, like none of us know. None of us know what tomorrow holds, right? None of us know. And so I think there's something interesting about like aspects of control there, right? And I don't know about you, but like the pandemic was a time for me where I just felt like, oh wow, like we've never actually had any control, but the like veil was lifted and we could see that we had no control, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's like it's hard to hold those two things together, that like we can actually only control our own actions and reactions. And we have this hope that things can be better through those actions.
Hmm. So beautiful. So beautiful. Okay. I think that's going to bring us back to one of the official questions. Yeah. So, I like them all, but, okay. We'll go with the first question because it's really good. So you talk about doing your best without harming your physical or mental health. For folks who feel like the moment demands everything from them right now, how do you even start having that conversation with yourself?
I think it's about sustainability, actually, because I think that like when we think about like go, 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 go all of the time, right? Um, that will demand rest in the form of burnout, right? Like which is not the kind of rest that we want, right? Like, I don't know if you're familiar with those like Liz and Molly comics. I don't know. Anyways, I'll send it to you afterwards. But anyways, there's this one that's like there are two options, and there's like a staircase. It's like work, rest, work, rest, work, rest, and then there's another one that's like a steep hill and then a cliff, and it's like work, rest, right? And so I think it's like remind a constant reminder to ourselves that actually we are able to do more of the important work that we want to do and have hope for if we build in the rest and the relaxation and the time that we need. And like, I'm not just saying that, but also there are, as if we needed reasons, real good reasons to rest, but there's lots of studies that show that when we take time to whatever, just to rest and not think about the stuff,
Resource
etc.
ourselves. Yeah.
Like real rest, when we take that time, that we come back more productive, more creative, of course, a little more motivated, right? But that's a whole other story. But we actually like we come back with that. And so thinking about it, it's something that I think about all the time is like people are like, I will rest when I'm done, right? Or like, I'll rest when I'm dead, or people say that, right? But the reality is that like there will always be more, no matter what kind of work you do, whether it's your activism work, whether it's your personal development, whether it's your work, right? Like you, me, and everyone else on this call and in the world, we could all work 18 hours a day and there would still be more work
What do you
tomorrow. We
do?
could do that for the rest of our lives and there would still be more work tomorrow. And so, like, partly we need to build in the joy, but we also need to build in that rest. And it's not like it's not, I hate the idea that like we think we have to earn it, right? We have to put in that work so that like we earn this rest. No, like that's just part of being a human being. Like,
Hmm.
why do we sleep? It's our bodies forcing us to rest.
Hmm. Yeah. So I have questions, but first I also want to share something that makes me think of. My signature course is called the Grounded Resistance Training Course,
Hmm.
and I'm going to be doing it end of June. And one of the units is sustain your impact.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes I give, like which is a burnout prevention
Yeah.
workshop, right? And one of the not quotes, but one of the statistics I mention is, that there is a built-in break in your workday, and it's
Mm.
like legally required now in most states. Breaks were invented not by unions, but by foremen who found out specifically with children that if you gave them a break, they produced more pieces per day than if you didn't.
It all comes down to capitalism.
Well, it comes down to capitalism wanting itself to survive, right?
Yeah. It's a yeah, it means it's survival, right? It's sustainability, right? In a weird, convoluted way. It's
Right, right.
sustainability.
But what's amazing is even the most like harsh environment you can think of, a
Yeah.
sweatshop,
Yeah. They found that to
and
be true.
they found that to be
Yeah.
true. And they
Well,
found that to be in their interest. So why are
yeah.
we being less kind to
Yeah.
ourselves than a sweatshop is to children?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes me think there's also I mean, that's a whole nother story, right? But there's also a study that showed that people who work 70 hours a week are not any more productive than people who work 50 hours a week. So if we are putting in that extra time, because like we are human
Yeah,
beings and we have like most people
capacity.
have like, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 6 hours of like real productive focus work a day in their
Okay.
heads. Like maybe we're at work for 10 hours, but like we're going to be kidding. We're kidding ourselves if we think we're actually working that whole time. It's not possible, right? And so I always think about that because I have, I just met with someone the other day who said, "Yeah, I'm putting in 80 to 90 hour weeks and I don't think it's sustainable." And I was like, "Yeah, it's
It's
not."
not.
And like not only is it not sustainable, but you probably like if you cut your work hours in half, I bet you wouldn't be any less productive.
Any less productive. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, I know, I know that sort of, so if the answer is not, I'll rest when I'm done,
Yeah.
what is the answer?
What practically can we do, right? Like I,
Yeah,
I always
yeah,
like to
yeah,
bring
yeah.
in practically and tactically back. So one thing, it's like it's lots of things are simple and not easy, right? So I'm going to use the word simple a lot because like a lot of we're fighting against our own self in some ways, right? But I think that one of my favorite tactics is to choose a stopping time for each day. So it doesn't have to be the same. It's not like every day I'm going to end at 6:30 or whatever, right? Like it's like look at your day and say, okay, what ruthlessly realistically fits into the time I have available to give? And what time am I going to be done? Right. And two things happen when we do this. One is that we start to actually think about planning for the time we really have to give versus the kind of imaginary time that we wish we had, which is what we're usually doing. We're like, I would like to get these 30 things done in this 2 hour period. And like, that's just a lie. We're setting ourselves up to feel bad. Right.
Mm.
So that happens. And then also, Parkinson's law kicks in. And Parkinson's law is that work expands to fill the time allotted. Right. And so you've probably noticed this before. Like sometimes you like sit down to do something and you're like, if you have the whole afternoon, it might take you the whole afternoon. But if you've got a doctor's appointment at 3 p.m. and that thing needs to get out today, somehow you're making it happen, you know? And
Mm.
so I noticed this actually on my I mean, I'm not the first person to notice Parkinson's law, right? But like obviously, but I noticed this the first time on my first maternity leave when I had, like before that, I was like, yeah, well, if I have to work longer, I can work longer or whatever. And then all of a sudden I came back from maternity leave and like those daycares, those of you on this call who are parents will know they charge you like $1 a minute for every minute that you're late, right? And so all of a sudden it was like, no, 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 I have to leave the office at 5 p.m. on the dot. And what I found was that things that were taking me longer before were taking me less time and the quality wasn't reduced, right?
Mm.
And so this like picking a stopping time and saying, you know what, today's going to be done by this time. I think that uh, it's artificial, of course, and maybe we fudge it a little bit, but it's a way to like remind ourselves that no, like it's not that we just work up until we crash every day, right?
Oh,
I
no,
could keep on going, but
no, no, no. I think it's exciting. It made me think of a story that I'm actually surprised I don't tell this story more often. So when I was in the Occupy Wall Street movement, it was an encampment and it was an encampment-based activist movement. We had a lot of meetings at the beginning, and there was this one guy who was just like, so the first day that we set up camp, he like facilitated like 5 meetings or something. And I said, you're sunburnt. You should go inside. And he said, no, I have to facilitate this meeting. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, I don't know who would if I don't. And he went, eventually went home that night. He never came back. He never came back to the encampment. Um,
yeah,
and like if he had just stuck to facilitating 2 meetings and spending half an hour walking around finding out who else can facilitate meetings, um,
right.
you know, we he could have done that every day for 2 months, right?
Yeah.
Actually, he wouldn't have had to do the walking around more than once, right? But instead, he facilitated 5 meetings. That's all we got out of it.
And then that's it. I think you bring up something that is really important there. And this is that, like, part of this is asking for help, right? Part of it is saying, like, we can't actually do everything on our own. We can't take on the load all by ourselves. And so, like, for this guy, part of that, like maybe those 5 meetings did need to happen, but he didn't need to be the person shouldering all of that, right? And I think that for
There
people
were
who are like,
hundreds of people
great,
that day,
yeah,
if
who
not
could
a
have done it?
thousand. Yeah.
Right. And like, I think delegate, like in the work that I do with people, like delegation remains one of the hardest things for people for a number of reasons. Like the two primary ones are that we always think we can do it better and faster ourselves. And then also we don't want to overburden other people. Like we say, oh, I see how much those people are taking on. I don't want to overburden them, but we actually don't know. We don't know what their capacity is. Our capacities might be different. Like we're all kind of responsible for our own boundaries around things. And so I think that's another really important aspect to like not burning out and to sustaining ourselves is to be willing to share that load.
Cool. And then my other question around this was about so you teach about prioritization. I also teach about prioritization, right? What what's the benefit? Yeah. How does choosing what we do allow us to not hurt ourselves?
Yeah, this is a really good question, right? So I think that like I'm going to take it back a step because I think
Okay.
that most people that I work with, they come in with this, and most people I work with, I call it, they're like pe successful people who got there by brute force, right? Like it's just like they have been brute forcing it their whole life and working harder and faster, right? And they come in and they think like, okay, I'm just like a few techniques away from figuring out how to do everything, do it all in the time that I want to do. And actually, that prevents them from properly prioritizing. Like that belief prevents you from properly prioritizing. Because if you believe you can do everything, then you're like,
Mhm.
well, let me just check these little things off the list, right? Let me get through the little stuff first. And then eventually I'll get to the big stuff. I'll have more time for that. But as we all know, the little stuff never ends, right? Like there will always be more dishes, there will always be more laundry, and there will always be more emails. Like the little stuff is never going to end. And
Mm.
so what prioritization does is it allows us to say, I am willing to accept that not everything will get done. And if I am willing to accept that not everything will get done, then what are the things that are important to get done? Because if we think we can do it all, then it's just a matter of when it's going to happen. But prioritization is often, like, honestly, it is mostly about deciding what we are not going to do or what we are not going to do right now.
Yeah, and when we do the top priority thing and we get to the end of the day, we don't feel bad, right? There might
No,
still
right.
be 18 things on your list, but if
No,
you've done the really important thing,
yeah. You feel good, right? It's about
feel good.
feeling good. And like that, so I use this concept that I don't know, maybe I coined it, I'm not sure, but I call it like time realism, right? And the idea is that like let's just say we're going to simplify it. Let's say that tomorrow you have time to do 5 things, right? I know this is kind of a silly, but whatever, because things take different amounts of time. But let's just say you have time to do 5 things. Now, are you going to feel better if you put 25 things on your list and you get 5 of them done? Or if you put 5 things on your list and you get those 5 things done. Because even if you get the same 5 things done, in the first scenario, you feel like crap. You had to move 20 things to tomorrow. And in the second scenario, you feel amazing. You're like, look at me. I did these things that like were important and I said I was going to do. And so it's so often about our expectations for ourselves around this stuff. Because yeah, like you're right. If you get those, and this is another reason why, yeah, I have a list of lots of things that I want to get during any given week. But I also always put like on my calendar, what is like the top 1 or 2 things that like come hell or high water by the end of this week, I really want to have accomplished. And you're right. If I accomplish those things and there's other stuff that needs to be pushed to next week, I don't feel bad.
Yep, yep, yep. I wanna read what John contributed a little earlier, and then I'm gonna look at the questions again. So, as a cyclist, training without taking time to recover from the training stimulus hindered progress. Yeah,
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 right.
yeah.
Yeah. It's like an imperative. Our bodies try to keep teaching us.
Mm, mm. All these questions are good, and they don't have a clear flow. So I'm like, which one? Which one? Uh, okay, yeah. What's okay? This is so funny. I'm like, okay, I'll do it in order. Like contemplate, contemplate, contemplate. Do it in order. Uh, what what's the difference between saying I don't have time and saying I'm choosing not to prioritize this? What's the difference
Mm.
and why does it matter?
Oh my God, 100%. Agency, personal agency is the difference. And when we feel that we have agency, which is different from control, we can't always control the outcomes. But when we feel that we have agency and we feel that we have autonomy, autonomy, agency, and our motivation are actually very linked together, right? So when we say, I didn't have time for that, I don't have time for that, we are saying, well, like, woe is me. Like, it's the world's fault that I don't have time for all of this stuff that I want to do, right? When we say actively, I didn't prioritize that, we're putting ourselves back in the driver's seat. And we're saying that, like, yep, there are lots of things that I could be doing. And I chose actively to prioritize this over something else. And so, I often think about when I think about prioritization, I think it's like the goal of prioritization is when our head hits the pillow to know that the things we did today were more important than the things we didn't do, because there will always be things that we didn't do.
Things we
And so
don't
I
do.
just, yeah, just puts us back in the driver's seat, feeling like we have agency. And when we have agency, we also feel like we have more hope too, right? Because we're like, no, 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 I am doing things that matter. And so I think that's
Hmm.
the difference.
Ooh, I love that. I love that last part, especially about knowing that you're doing things that matter. Oh, and actually mattering is one of the prioritization thing. I might have even told you about this prioritization technique that I teach in the Ground Your Resistance training course,
Mhm.
Ground Your Resistance Intensive,
Yep.
etc. Um, it's an acronym called MOVED, and you go through your
Mm.
tasks and you rate them on five criteria, and M stands for mattering.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there are so many great prioritization methods out there, right? Um, and there are so many bad ones also. But like what I love
Oh,
about and
Deborah wants to know what Olive Moved is. So first of all, sign up for VIP and you'll be there. But second of all, mattering. Oh no, Alexis said agency.
oh, I said agency, I said autonomy, and then what did I say? I don't know. We'll have to go back
Oh
and
goodness,
we'll
autonomy,
have to go back.
agency, and doing
I'm
what
sorry.
matters. I think it
Yeah, I
was.
think it was, I think so. You know
Uh,
what? You'll have access to the recording. And, this is where this happens to me a lot, actually. People will say, "What did you just say?" And I'll be like, I'm not exactly sure what I just said. So we're sorry.
but
But
it is
around
being
like
recorded.
yeah, yes, but it is being recorded. You'll have access to the recording, and we are what at minute like 23. So you can just go back to that minute and we can see what we said. But when it comes to like the prioritization frameworks and things, the one thing that I think really helps with any framework that we're using, whether it's the move or whether it's like the ICE method or whether it's the Eisenhower matrix or whether any of these things, is that I think that they, like all of them, need to then inform when are we going to do the next thing, right? Because we can, like, what I find is overwhelming for a lot of people, myself included. If you,
Hmm.
even if you're, let's say you're looking at your prioritized list and it's like linearly prioritized from top to bottom, maybe you've got 50 things that are high priority and high urgency. And so now you're looking at that and you're like, oh my God, which one should I do? Like there's so many that I could do in this time. And sometimes we get stuck in analysis paralysis. And I find that two things happen here. One, if we can use that to say, okay, yes, these are the most important, the most urgent things I need to do. Where do I actually slot them in to my day? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be like at 9:30 on Tuesday, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. But it's more about like, okay, is this a Tuesday thing, right? Like, is this a Friday thing? Does it fit into the time I have available? Like, don't assign yourself a whole bunch of stuff to do if you have back-to-back meetings all day on Wednesday, right? It's about when it is in time, because that allows you to do what we're talking about ruthless realism. It allows you to have a stopping time when you are prioritizing your tasks and your projects and the next actions in time. I think that's a really critical thing that a lot of people, maybe not, maybe it's not miss, or maybe it's we're never taught, but it helps us to de-overwhelm, if that is a word, right? Our what we've got to do. And so I think that is a really important aspect when we think about any type of
So is
prioritization.
it so it's the move from a to-do list to to do now, to do later, to do then, right? So the
I call it like a system, right? So like, yeah,
system, yeah.
everyone's brain is different. So we're all gonna like latch onto a concept and like maybe we'll use it in different ways. But the way I think about it is like if I'm planning out my week, right? Like I am looking, one, I'm doing it on Friday so that I can actually enjoy my weekend. Then and come in on Monday with like, okay, here is what I'm planning to do and it fits into the time. But I'm like literally looking at my task list, I'm looking at my calendar, I'm moving stuff around on my task list based on the time I have available in my calendar so that I'm not overloaded on any one day. And so that I can then like look and say, okay, like, yeah, maybe I have 100 things I need to do next week, but I only really need to look at the 20 of them that I'm going to take action on Monday so that I don't have to like see the whole th
All of it.
thing because that can be incredibly overwhelming. And so I think of it as like separating the planning from the doing in a little bit of, because when we can separate the planning from the doing, we make better decisions about our time. Because in the moment, right? Like if you're like looking at the list and you're like, ooh, taxes is on the list, right? Like literally there's no time. I mean, unless you're some special kind of person, most people, there's no time where I would be like, hey, what do you want to do right now, Alice? Would you like to do your taxes right now? And that
Mhm.
you would be like, yes, yes, me, I would love to do my taxes right now. Like there's all sorts of things that are necessary and yet we don't want to do them. But if we show up and we say, you know what? Alice of the past told me, told Alice of today that like today is the day to do taxes so that I can do these other things. Then we get to become a little bit of an automaton in the doing because we did that planning work.
Yeah, you doing and planning are so different
Hmm.
that if you have to do planning before you do doing, it's very stuck. It's a very stuck sensation. Like it's like you're about to run out the door and you've got a big pile of boxes and bags blocking the door. That's
Yeah,
my experience of being ready to take action, and the action hasn't been planned for yet.
great. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because you're like, what could I could do anything, right? And this is really interesting too. I experience this with a lot of my clients, especially those who have kind of like moved careers or life stages in some ways. So like sometimes I work with people who are like shifting slowly into retirement, or sometimes I work with people who have been a startup founder and now they're a VC. And like they have gone from fire, fire, fire to and now I have like a whole day and it's all for me. And like, what do I do? And they're like, why am I so much less productive when I have open space than when I was just like in there fighting fires? And it's because when you're in there just fighting fires, the planning isn't as necessary because you're just showing up to it's like an ER doctor, right? Like an ER doctor isn't planning what they're doing. They're showing up and they're responding to the thing, right? Whereas like most of us are not ER doctors. And helping us like if we do that little bit of planning, it helps us then actually accomplish the doing. But I
Yeah,
love your metaphor of like the bags blocking the door.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
My mom used to say, and apparently this was an expression when she was a kid in the 40s. Um, if you want some, if you want something to get done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah, I've heard that too, right? Yeah. And it's true. Like,
Because when you're busy, you're already in that do mode. So you just add
right,
one more thing. You're already juggling. Hand me another
right,
ball. I've
right.
already got the juggling going.
Yes. And the other thing that planning does for us, right? Like no plan goes off without a hitch, right? Like there is no like I plan every single week for that week ahead. I never show up to a day that happens exactly as I planned it, right? Like we live in the real world. Sometimes a meeting will fall off the calendar. Sometimes something will come on the calendar. Sometimes I wake up and I just don't feel like doing the thing that I had planned to do. And like I'll move it to some other time. But what I find that planning does do is it helps us provide like a backstop. So it helps us to make better decisions about incoming items. So if you have
Mm,
planned, like if this is your plan, and now there's like incoming item, you can actually now evaluate and say like, hey, is this more important than anything else I've planned today? If so, great. Like move your plan and like feel good about it. If not, like it might give you a little bit of the confidence to like push back on it, right? Like I always use this very dramatic example of, you know, what I was living abroad, I was living in Taiwan during the pandemic and Someone was staying at my house in San Francisco, and she called me and said, "Hey, your water heater is leaking all over the place," right? And thank God she was there. But also, then I was like, okay, well, I had a day that was fully planned of things I need to do. But what I now need to do is figure out from halfway across the world how to get a new water heater installed in my house. And like that was actually much more important than anything that I had
Anything
planned to
on
do
your
that
list?
day, right?
Yep.
It's like it was an easy answer. But it would be easy also for sometimes for me like I can't believe I didn't get done that stuff that I had planned. Like the point of planning is not to follow the plan exactly. It's to be able to make better decisions and better pivots with your time.
That's so cool. Um, I'm noticing it's 4:30. I'm like, I want to ask one more question. I want to move on to the thing that comes after questions. Um, just real quick, I think a lot of people are overwhelmed, both emotionally and task-wise, when when we start paying attention to crises in the world, right? Like we've
Mhm.
already got, I think you wrote an email about this, like
Yeah.
your to-do list in the news, same problem, right?
Yeah.
So when people get experience this overwhelm, like I was
Mhm.
already taking care of my family, or I already had a job, or I was already so busy, and now the world is also falling apart, and I have to
Yeah.
keep myself safe and my family safe and
Yeah.
try to keep the world safe.
Yeah.
It's all too much.
Mm.
What can what can what can people do
Yeah.
when
So,
they find themselves in that experience?
yes. So, one, I will say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm happy to share a few things that I find work for me and other people. And so, one of them is to actually, like, I think there's this tension that most people who are activists and or want things to change in some way feel, which is, well, now I've lost my train of thought. This tension between, like, I need to be fully informed and also I need to protect my mental health. And I don't know about everyone else on this call, but at least for the last 15 months, this has actually been incredibly hard to do both of these things at the same time. And so I think it's a matter of like figuring out what is that right level of informed for you and what are the modalities that you need that in. And so like I'll just give an example of myself. In the pre-current administration era, like my general news was that I would listen to NPR's Up First in the morning while I was like getting dressed. And like that would give me my kind of international and national headlines of the day. And then, maybe I'd get some other stuff later, but like that was kind of where I was getting stuff. Um, and then maybe I'd be like watching some videos on TikTok, which I know it's not the greatest, right? But maybe that's how I'd be getting news. What I found in the last several months is that anything that is audio or visual for news really sends my nervous system into a spiral. And so I now have like reduced my news intake to things that are only written. And so now I basically read Heather Cox Richardson's newsletter and I read News Not Noise. And I just assume if it's not in those two sources, I'll get it from someone else, right? Maybe my husband, like, he's more into it than so like that. I mean, it hasn't solved the problem, but it's really helped. Like there was something about the like audio and visualness of it that was really keying me up. And when I read it, I can like do it at my own pace. I can put it down if I need to, etc. So that's one way. Another way that I find is helpful, and it's going to sound incredibly silly, but like there's science that this works, and anecdotally it works as well, is to schedule time to worry. Literally, like on your calendar. Like if you are having trouble just like focusing throughout the day because your mind keeps going and you keep wanting to pull up the news or whatever, literally schedule time on your calendar to worry. Maybe you need 15 minutes a day, maybe you need an hour a week, like whatever. And then as you come up with worries, and you're not going to like stop the things from coming into your head, but kind of like meditation where you're just like, let it go. I want you to write the worry down, right? Write it down. Maybe if you have a calendar appointment for
It's like
yourself,
making an agenda for a
yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Like as you think of something, you're like, oh my God, I'm worried about XYZ. Write it down. And then when you get to that time on your calendar, sometimes we find actually we don't need to worry now that it's there. And other times we can just be like, you know what? The next 30 minutes, I am just going to allow myself to worry. And I'm going to think through these things and I'm going to perseverate about it. And then when the time is done, I'm going to like put it back in the box and say, okay, tomorrow there'll be another time to worry.
That would have been very helpful for me during peak COVID. I was I
Yes.
was I was doom scrolling 7 hours a day for a while until I found an action to take. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that is exactly when I hit on this strategy because so many of my clients were like, all I do is check the COVID numbers. Like I'm just constantly refreshing the COVID numbers and it's driving me insane, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and then um and then I have the grief grounding process where you
Yeah.
actually like go into the feelings and you're like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
like just listen to that. And I'm going to be leading one of those for these folks tomorrow morning. Of course,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Well, and
need
then the
it.
other little thing, I don't know if it's time to plug this, but I will because like we're talking about it now, is, one of the freebie that
Yes,
I'm giving to
it's the
everyone.
perfect next question.
Yeah,
I was
like
going to
this
ask
is
about it.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah. So like the freebie that I'm giving to everyone who is here and who registered, et cetera, is something that I built, is a tool that I actually built for myself when I was feeling really overwhelmed and like I didn't know what to do. And it's called the Democracy Defender Personal Playbook. It's a little tool that you can use, and you essentially you chat with it and you tell it like, what is your risk level? Right? There's some options there. Like, are you someone who's like going to be at Occupy Wall Street in the encampments, or are you somebody who's like feels better from the in your own home? Right? What's your risk level? It's going to ask you like, what are some skills that you have? Right? And it doesn't matter what skills they are. Like when I did this for the first time for myself, I was like, well, I'm a ceramicist. I knit, I crochet. Like I just was like, I was like, I'm good at organization now. Like I just like threw all the skills at it. If you want to tell it where you are, that will get you more local results. And you can tell it how much time you have a week to devote to this. So maybe it's like an hour, maybe it's 10 hours, maybe it's 5 minutes, right? Whatever you tell it, it's then going to give you 3 or 4 small actions that you can take that move things forward that are based on your risk level, your time available, and your skills. And
Mm.
like what I love about this, I've continued to use this tool, is that I like things change, right? Sometimes I have more time than other times. And so like if I have more time to give or I feel like I can, I might go back in and be like, what could I do now? Right? Or maybe I gained a new skill. And I'm like, ooh, I have this skill now. Like, what could I do now? And that's what like I don't know, the beginning of the pandemic, that's what, or not the pandemic, at the beginning of this current, whatever we're calling it, I use that and like it's part of what led me to join the San Francisco Mutual Aid Society because like I like wasn't really aware that that existed. And like now I'm part of a mutual aid pod. Um, and I find that to be like something that allows me to feel like I'm doing something and it doesn't take that much time. So yeah, I'm really excited about this tool because it's ruthlessly realistic.
Ruthlessly realistic. So
Yeah.
great. So great. All right. So, folks, this is when I turn to you. Do you have questions? Questions or shares for Alexis? Things you want to know, things you want to say, things that resonated with you, things that didn't resonate with you, any, yeah, but you don't know my life.
Yeah,
Um,
please. I love that kind of thing. So, okay, I'm
okay,
looking.
Karen has put in the chat.
Mm, feels
Yeah.
restful or feels shameful when we care so much about the issue. Others can shame us for leaving to go rest or refuel. Oh, this one, okay, it's really hard. And God, I hate shame so much. I hate the idea of shame. It's like it's real and we feel it. And also, I think that having some mantras I think there are two things, right? Having like some mantras that you may say to yourself in those moments, and maybe it's that like rest. Maybe I mean this is not going to be eloquent, but maybe it's like rest helps me do the work. Right? Or rest will allow me to do more, or whatever. And then maybe you also have some kind of script that you set that you pull out in these circumstances if people really say something to you like if you cared you'd stay, which I don't like that person who said that, right? But like or not that I
But
don't like
but
them, but like it's right. It's like
it's hard to watch people leave. So I
yeah,
get it.
yeah, like I get it, right? But it's also like you might say to them like I really do care and that's why it's important for me to rest because I want to be in this fight for the long haul. And I
Mm.
know that I'll burn out if I don't, right? So like there's some script that you use your own words, not just the words that are coming out of my mouth or Alice's mouth, but like I find that a lot of times coming up with a script, especially for difficult, this is true of like all difficult circumstances, right? So like I remember like a few years back I had cancer and like when people would ask about, like, I just didn't want to always get into it, right? And so I would just have a little script, like a little thing I could say that would like shut down the conversation, but like I felt good about it, right? And so I think that in a lot of awkward situations or situations where it's like come up with something that feels good to you and that you can say on repeat when this comes up. And maybe you will help other people too when you say something like this. Because, like, I can imagine if you say, like, yeah, I want to be in this for the long haul. And that's why I know I have to rest because, like, I want to be here tomorrow for it. Right. That might make somebody else think, oh, interesting. Right. Like, maybe I can do something there. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful. I
I,
see another.
I want to give an additional answer.
Yeah,
I love
please,
this
please,
answer,
please.
and
Yeah.
just something radical just sort of came to me,
Mm,
which is to thank them, thank
yeah.
that part of yourself, and thank the other, because there is a message in the shame that you
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
you do want to receive. Like, thank you so much for your commitment to the cause, and thank you
Yeah.
for valuing me.
Yeah, I think this is really valid. And it, what it's making me think of is, the idea of, we all have the like negative self-talk in our heads, or most people do have some of that in their heads. And the idea of like naming those voices where like literally sometimes if you're like I know that for me I have a voice that is frugality, right? And like that comes up a lot when in my life, like I'm thinking about something, whatever, and like that frugality voice will come in. But sometimes it's like not appropriate for the circumstance, right? Or it's not actually serving me. So I will say literally to myself, like, hey, thank you for trying to protect me here. And also, in this case, I don't need it. And I've actually thought it through, right? And so thinking about like some people like to name the voice like Sandy or like whatever. Like some people like to literally name it. But knowing what those voices are and that they usually come from a protective place and that they just don't, they're not necessary in all circumstances. So I really like the thinking that you were talking about right there. Um, Okay, I see more questions. Okay. What do you consider rest? I sometimes feel not knowing how to rest and relax anymore. I think this is an opportunity. So I think this is different for everybody, right? And so I think some people have more like active rest, and some people have more passive rest and like what feels good to them. But what I might suggest, I am really a fan of when we don't know something about ourselves, just doing a little like data gathering and tracking, right? So you might say if you're not sure at all, you might say like let me just make a list of 10 restful activities that like other people do. Or maybe I'm gonna like poll my friends and say like what do you do when you want to rest and relax? And I might make a list of those and I might test them out, right? Like over the course of a week when I need to rest, I might say, okay, I'm gonna read a book now, right? Or I am going to watch some guilty pleasure TV. Or, for me, maybe this does like I am in the pottery studio a lot because like making with my hands is something that is like both restful and creative to me. And so I feel like I am my cup gets filled when I am in those places. Maybe for some people, it's like going and out to dinner with your friends or having a Zoom with your friends. For other people, it might be like reclusive alone time if you need to recharge. And so I would say if you're not sure what it is, do a little testing, do a little iterating, and then do some reflection after those activities and say, like, how did that make me feel? And some of those might make you feel like for some people, like going on a walk, even though it's active, very restful, right? It's something that like rejuvenates you. And so thinking of it as there's not no right way to do it, but there are things that feel differently to different people and finding out what those are for you. And then this, would you avoid useful rest? Yeah, it's interesting because I struggle with this. I think our culture struggles with this idea. Like we often think like, well, we are only resting so that we can be more productive. And I think like if we need a good reason, like a good reason to rest, fine. Like we can say useful rest. But we also just like deserve it for being alive on this planet, right? Like it is actually something that is like built into our brains and biology. And so if useful rest is a helpful framework for you, then use it. But if it feels like it takes away, then don't use it. I mean, I really love the Rest is Resistance book. It's a manifesto kind of about rest. And I think that's a really valid read if you want to think more deeply and more critically about the idea of rest and kind of want to turn that on its head. I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so Hannah is saying yes, that did it, and I I have sort of a follow-up thought about it though, which is that sometimes when people are go, 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 they
Mm,
start entering a kind of an early phase of burnout and rest
mm,
feels bad.
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because the transition from go, go, go to rest is jarring, or
Mhm.
because they still feel unsafe, whatever they were running from, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, great, now I'm standing still and the lion will catch
Mm.
me.
Yeah.
Or so yeah, do you
I
have thoughts on that?
well, I think like yes, I have thoughts on that. I mean, I think you're right. Like that shows up and it's a feeling worth noticing, right? Like no feelings are bad feelings. Like they're just feelings, right? And like they tell us information about ourselves. So like when that shows up, what does that mean? But what I was actually thinking was like tangentially related to this, which is that people, I have found that people have different ideas of like what rest looks like based on how or like when it looks like based on who they are, right? And so I often think about this kind of like, are you a person that likes spaciousness in your day or around your day? Right. So for me, I am a very all or nothing person when it comes to like activity. It's like the site once I sit down for the evening, I'm down for the count, right? Like nothing else productive is happening like once I have sat down. And so I am like I'm kind of like a high inertia person. So it's like once I'm working, I'm like go 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 go. But once I'm resting, I'm like that's it, right? Other people are very much like no, I need like breaks in my day. I
I
need
feel
like
the
some
same.
spaciousness within the day, and it's very like I do client meetings back to back to back to back to back so that I can have other days that are like fully spacious. Whereas lots of coaches I know are like, no, I never take more than 3 calls a day because I need those spacious breaks in there. And so neither one is right. But I think that, for me, coming back to that bad feeling, it actually doesn't really feel good. Like to take a break in the middle of the day and like go for a walk or whatever, that's actually incredibly hard for me. And it doesn't feel good and it actually doesn't feel restful because I'm
Mm,
not in that mode right then, right? Like I need to be in that mode for the rest to like work or be helpful or to take effect. Whereas I know some people are very different.
mm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I think I was thinking it could be like an easing back in. Like
Hmm.
maybe your first try with rest has to be a little bit busy, or like for
Yeah.
me, fun is tends to be something that I need someone else to drag me into. So it'll be
Hmm.
like, okay, I can go to a square dance. I
Yeah.
can go to amusement park with someone, right?
Yeah.
So like it starts being, and when I was in the habit of having more fun, when I was, say, a kid,
Yeah.
um, I could initiate fun, right?
Yeah.
But like there may be an easing in of like, this is the kind of rest I can access now. And once
Right.
I'm used to that, maybe I can try something gentler. Like, so maybe your first kind of rest has to be a vigorous walk or reading a
Yeah.
book. But then at some point it can be actually just sitting on the floor.
Or like reminding yourself of the fact that you had fun the last time you did something like this, right? I always think about one of my kids who, God, when he was little, every single time there was like a birthday party on the calendar, he would be like kicking and screaming, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And like you're thinking I'm a bad parent. Why did I force my kid to go to these birthday parties? Because every time he got there, within 10 seconds of getting there, he would be having a blast. So enjoying himself. And then the next time we would have a birthday party on the calendar, he would be like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I'd be like, do you remember how last time you had such a great time? And he'd be like, no. And then we would go anyways, and he would have a great time. And so it's like, it's sometimes that reminding ourselves that, like, once we get there, wherever there is, we're probably going to have a good time and we'll get into that rest. And if we don't, we can change our minds. Like, we can
Yeah,
stop,
we
we can do
don't.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I want to make sure we get to John, and hopefully we have enough time to get to John's
Oh,
question
oh,
too.
sorry, I didn't see that there was another question. No, we've got time. Oh, I
Yeah.
see
Okay.
it. Yes. Good.
Might be too
Um,
complex. I don't feel obligated.
well, no,
No,
I
no,
like
I
it.
think
I
we do
like
have
it.
time. I just missed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So the question is, how does genuine buy-in on goals affect follow through? And then how often do you see this as a stumbling block? So first, it's huge, and I'm going to talk about this more. And then second, it is a stumbling block all the time. I literally was on a client call this week with a client who was saying, I need to get my team on board with this, and there's this one person on my team, and she's a real naysayer about things, and like I'm gonna have this. I want to talk through the conversation I'm gonna have with her, and like his talking points were like, "Hey, so and so, I really need you to be bought in on this thing. I need you to XYZ," and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna stop you right here. So time for some real talk. Nobody is getting bought in because you tell them they need to be bought in. Like that is not how it works. Maybe you're going to
Okay.
get buy-in in name only, but you're going to get resistance the whole way through. And the reason is that people need to feel co-creation, co-ownership of a goal in order to put effort into it, right? If we do not feel that we have ownership, that we co-created whatever this is, then we are just typically going through the motions. And so then we do find this as a stumbling block. The follow through is affected. We feel like we're herding cats trying to get people to do something because it's not their idea. And for whatever reason, human beings need to feel like something is their idea in order to move it forward. We care more about it, right? And so the answer is not like everything always has to be other people's idea. What I have found is that if we have an idea that we want to push forward, right, we're going to come in with a draft version of that idea. It's not going to be fully formed. It's not going to be fully fleshed out. We are going to come in with a draft idea open to feedback, right? And we are going to solicit feedback from people. We're going to say, "Hey, can you help me poke holes in this? Hey, like where could this be better?" Like, "Hey, we're going to ask like and we got to get a little bit humble, right? Because maybe somebody's going to come up with an idea that is tangential to our idea and actually better than our idea. Or people are going to like improve the thing that we did. But only through that process of getting people's minds to feel as though they had some part in this do we get them to feel that true sense of buy-in. So this is actually a really necessary stage. Do we have to accept all of the feedback? No, right? Like it's not necessary to like take in everything, but what we do find is that things that make sense, yes, we want to incorporate, and things that we feel really strongly don't make sense, we want to explain why they don't, right? Because most people are pretty okay with saying like, yeah, we're not going to do that, and here's the reason why, and like I get that reason. They don't like just, "Hey, no, we're not going to do that," and there's no follow-up because they don't feel heard. And human beings have a real need to be heard. So that is a long-winded answer to your question. I hope that is helpful, but like that is what I found over and over again in every circumstance I've ever been in. And I've seen so many leaders fall from not doing this.
I
Okay.
would also add, like on a personal basis, like I need to feel buy-in to actually like follow through on all these plans. Because if there's hesitance there, I just find I can't get around to doing it.
Oh,
It's
I have something for
it's a
you, John.
struggle. Okay.
Okay. Are you familiar with Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies framework?
No, but I'll write
Okay.
it down right
Go
now.
write it down. Because based on what you just said, like she has this framework, and I'm going to wrap this up in just a second, Alice. I know we're probably head out, but I think this is really, really helpful, both personally and in our relationships with other people. She has this framework, and it is about how we handle internal versus external expectations. And what you just said, I don't think we have time to go through all of it right now, but what you just said, I think I would bet, based on that one comment, that you are in this camp called a questioner. And with a questioner, they don't really care where the expectations come from, internal or external, as long as they make sense, right? So if you're like, "Yep, this makes sense, this is valid to me," then yes, I will do that thing and I will be all bought in. But if I can't, like, if it's somebody else's should, if it's my should for myself and I don't know the reasons why not, then
Yes.
we just can't make ourselves do the thing. And there are a lot of different, there are three other types in this framework. And do I think that everyone fits neatly into a personality framework? Not always, but I find this to be a really effective one because it changes the way that you speak to other people. So like I am a questioner and my husband is a questioner. And what I learned from this is that this is why when I ask my husband to do something, he's not just going to do it just because I asked, right? He needs a reason. He needs a reason that he believes in that is like coming from his point of view. So now, if I want him to do something, I will first be like, what does he care about? What's his bottom line? And how does this fit into his bottom line? And then I will say, I would like you to do this thing, and here's why. And that gets compliance like, I don't know, 10 times more than when I would just be like, please, pretty please, can you do this thing for me? Right? As much as that would be lovely, that's not who he is. And when we think about this in the context of the people that we work with and that we're trying to push things ahead, it helps us to see things from their perspective so that we can give them what they need to get on board.
What is
Wow.
the name again?
It's Gretchen Rubin's Four Tendencies Framework. So I think if you search it's the most boringly named framework of any framework, but like just search four tendencies and you will find it. There's a little quiz, and you can also there's a book if you really want to go deep on it.
Great. All right. Julio, can you put Alexis's free gift in the chat again? And can you put VIP in the chat again? So I'm going to do this backwards. So today's fast action bonus for VIP is your find your unique contribution and set boundaries bundle. So there is and it's actually very related to some of the things that we talked about. It's a webinar on how can you tell if you're doing something because you want to versus out of a sense of obligation. And it's a worksheet. It's the worksheet I use in the grounded resistance training course on identifying your assets, your skills, what you're really motivated by so that you can choose the actions that actually suit you.
I love that.
It's so good. And then of course, with VIP you get unlimited replays of all the videos, of which these interviews are so good. You get a free ticket to the Ground Your Resistance training course on June 24th through 26th, which is when we actually coach you on these things in your life, as opposed to what we do in the summit, which is amazing, but is not coaching you in your life. And you get a free coaching call directly with me to figure out exactly how you're going to lead the change in an area where you're currently stopped. And then Alexis has got this really cool tool of plug in some of the stuff you're good at and your time and where you live and get a recommendation for how you can go be a volunteer with something someone else has created where they really need you. So I recommend them both. Wow. Okay. So great to be with you, Alexis. So much fun, so much to think about, such a contribution to
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everyone here for being here and for asking really good questions.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. It's the end of our day. I will see a lot of you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So I know what's happening.